Oh, Dad's coming up.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
There's a superwoman now.
Huh?
I was watching Lois and Clark.
Oh. Okay, I'm up. I don't know how I'm going to do this. You can see it though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
And no, that is not real on the top. That's just for show.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Carol, you're in and can hear me?
Yeah, I'm in. I'm going to go ahead and hang up the phone.
So okay.
I'm not getting the echoes.
I got to figure out what's mine and what's yours. That is yours. This is mine. Hi guys. Good evening. I'm used to saying good afternoon, but it's not good afternoon. Okay. So I am going to go onto Instagram now. Because I can, I think, do that. I don't know how this is going to work. Oh, excellent. Give me a second, guys. It's so much easier to do this on Amazon than it is, or on YouTube than it is Instagram. You wouldn't think so, but okay. And go. Okay. So today I am letting y'all in on some tips and tricks if you want to set up a tarantula tank for yourself. First thing you need to know is the rules in your city or state, because tarantulas could be illegal in your city. So you may want to double check that before you buy one. So before I do anything else, I forgot. I forgot that I need to do the stats. So we are sitting at 391 subscribers right now. I feel like that's a dip. We have... Why am I not using analytics? Recap. So we had 7 videos, 7 shorts, 8 live streams, and 3 posts. That is not right. We had 1.9 thousand people join and watch. We had 2 new subscribers. What they watched this week, we already know. Whale Tales, 2 groups of whales, and Organism of the Week, giant squid. I had 13 likes, 25 shares, and 2 comments. How many times were your videos shared last week? 25 times, 29 times, or 33 times? What do we think? I'm thinking 25 times. I was right 25 times. Should have been more, guys. Should have been more. Just saying. Okay, we're going to skip to the second channel. Because that's the thing, guys. It's called Wildlife Replica World. Which probably needs to be changed, but it is what it is. We had 1 video and 5 shorts, which is right on schedule. 573 people turned in, and we got 1 new subscriber. People watch Bowhead Whale Toy Review, more random painted dog facts, and Pygmy Hippopotamus Toy Review. What was the most viewed video last week? I'm going to say Bowhead Whale. I was right. 574 views last week. Okay, now, can I get back into... Awesome. Okay. So, now we're going to... If you have questions as I'm going through this, please just put them in. Feel free to ask as we go through this. But I want to go ahead and get started. So, with any tarantula or arthropod that you're working with, in this case, it's a plastic animal. This is my huntsman spider. It's fake. You want to be really careful with it. So when I wash out my tanks, I don't use any chemicals. Very, very important. Because they can be really sensitive to chemicals and you can poison them. So don't use bleach. If you have to use something, use a really, really mild soap. But keep in mind that their habitats in the wild are not free of bacteria. So when I wash my tanks, it's simply water, an old rag, and if I have to, a new toothbrush that is designated just for tanks, and fresh water. No bleach, no alcohol, no soap. Okay? And you're off to a good start. Notice, I don't know if you do see it, but that tank right there, where am I? Right there. That is something I would need to clean with, that's something I would need to clean with a toothbrush or a cloth. So, next on the list of things to do, we're going to talk about substrate. So, my tank is already loaded with substrate. I don't have to fill it up in front of you because that would take forever. I do about 50-50 of coconut fiber stuff. If you keep tarantulas, you know what I'm talking about. It comes in a brick, and you soak it in water, and it, there's more of it, and you can do 2 or 3 tanks of this size with it. If you don't want to use, and then I put peat moss in with it. Some people suggest using vermiculite. You can. Yeah, it expands. Yes, thank you. You can use vermiculite, but you have to mix it in with other stuff. Okay? You need to let it dry because that coconut stuff is going to be really wet. Let it dry in a warm, dry area. You don't want it to be damp because you don't want mold. Let it dry out before you move on to the next step. I also recommend doing your research on substrate. One thing you want to keep in mind as you're filling your tank is depth. So at that depth, a baby tarantula would be able to dig. You do want to be careful with that. It's recommended that your substrate be 3 to 4 inches deep. Can you tumble dry it in the dryer? I don't recommend it. because it's going to make a mess. Because it is really, really like it's a powder. So, um, another thing to keep in mind is that when you're working with the peat moss, is there's some particulate matter with it. You may want to wear a mask or something when you're doing it because it gets everywhere. You do want your tarantula to act. So another thing to consider is, do you want? I still wouldn't do it. I would just let it dry in the air. Um, Another thing you want to consider is, do you want your animal to burrow? I think it's important to let them do that. On the other hand, if you want to see your tarantula, because some of them, once you give them room to burrow, they're going to go under and you're not going to see them maybe ever. But as we'll talk, there's still stuff you have to do. So you should have, depending upon your tarantula, 3 or 4 inches of substrate. And if you allow them to burrow, they can do that. We'll talk a little bit more about other areas um, that are equally important when it comes to digging. So just keep in mind that the deeper that your substrate is, decreases the opportunity for you to see it. If your animal does decide to burrow, which is fine, that's okay, you want to make sure you resist the temptation to go in there and dig. Because if they're molting underneath there and you dig in, you're going to disrupt that. And that is not cool. You could actually cause your animal to die. So don't dig. The other thing you want to do is make sure that you watch that the food disappears. If the food is disappearing, you know that your animal is alive and thriving. And even if you can't see it, it is important that you provide food and water every time that your animal needs to eat. So the next step is to provide drinking water for your animal. Your animal will need to drink. And I apologize. It's been a while since there's been a tarantula in this tank, and the water dish is bone dry. So, and it's dirty. That's what it looks like. It's very dirty, as you can tell. But a peanut butter cup, a peanut butter lid will work just fine. You're going to fill it up. I have used for slings, which, by the way, slings are baby spiders. You don't have to use a milk jug or a milk jug. You don't have to use a peanut butter lid. You can use a milk lid or even a bottle cap with water, and that'll work just fine. Uh, but it's important at all times that your animal have drinking water. Don't just assume, hey, I'm spraying my tank, they can get the moisture from off the sides. No, you need to provide water at all times. Fresh water every day. And another thing you can do, and I recommend it, is as you're watering your animals, let some overflow a little bit. That way there's moisture. That's very important, at least for most tarantulas. Now, I also don't recommend, as you're spraying your tank, which is what I do, that you don't spray your tarantula. They don't like that. Also, do not be surprised if your tarantula attacks. Some tarantulas are very, very territorial. They will see that intrusion They will see you in that tank and the mister inside that tank or the spray bottle as an intrusion, and they might attack or act defensively. So as you're doing this, as your tank is open, keep an eye on your tarantula, because one thing you don't want is your tarantula up here and you're watching over here. That doesn't work. So know where your tarantula is at. Also, tarantulas are known to fill up the water dish with substrate. If that happens, um, and your animal is one that bites, you can buy feeding tongs. I highly recommend them. Uh, Use those to get it out. And you want to dump that substrate back into your tank and then fill up your water container, your water dish. You can buy water dishes at pet stores, um, but you don't have to. Just make sure that your container is clean and has not had chemicals in it. Let's see. Next, we've talked about water. Are there any questions up to this point? Hello? I. Oh, darn it. I forgot to do that. I am sorry. Um, Next up, we're going to talk about the hide. So, there's a lot of ways and a lot of things you can use for hides. I started using plumber's elbows because I can bury this into the substrate. I can leave it on the surface. So that's what it would look like buried. Um, or I can just leave it on the surface. There are hides that you can buy at pet shops. Um, Various types. The bigger your tarantula, the bigger, of course, of a hide you need. You want them to be able to hide. Very, very important, because if they can't hide, they get stressed out, and that is not a good thing. If your animal is in a burrow, hey, that's good. That's what you want. The other thing you want to do is, if you do have a hide, periodically you want to sniff your enclosure a little bit. That way you know if there's mold inside your tank. Now, if you can actually see the mold on the surface of the tank, go in with your forceps, your feeding tongs, remove the stuff and throw it away. I read some conflicting things that you don't have to do a new substrate. Just watch your tarantula. Um, if you have like a wooden hide, that can mold depending upon the humidity inside the tank, so you need to watch that. Also, if you do have mold, you may want to check your humidity in your ventilation. These tanks are plastic. They do have a lot of ventilation in the lid, but if need be, you could even drill into the tank and make some ventilation holes. You could do that. I don't recommend doing it though with the spider inside the tank. So let's talk about decorating your tank. I don't recommend putting rocks into your tank. Uh, it may look really cool for animals that are rock or um, desert dwelling tarantulas to have some rocks in there. The problem with rocks is if your animal burrows and the substrate does not hold up that rock, you could end up losing your tarantula. The rocks could come down on top of it. And you don't want to spend a bunch of money on a tarantula only to have it killed. Decorations inside your tank. Another thing you want to watch is tarantulas are pretty docile, are not docile. That's not the word I wanted. Tarantulas are very you can injure them quite easily, or they can be injured quite easily. This part of the tarantula, the abdomen, think of it like a balloon. If your animal falls, that abdomen could pop and they could bleed. You can I've heard you can dust them with cornstarch. That helps to stop the bleeding. If you're brave, I've even heard that clear fingernail polish, will do the trick. Anything that you can use to sort of close up that. Cornstarch, honestly, would probably be better because there's no chemicals. So with decorations, you don't want to put anything in there that has a sharp edge because again, if your animal falls, it's going to get hurt. And that's going to cause problems for you. So you'll notice that my tank is not decorated. There's no fake plants. There's no plants. You could put plants in there, but chances are they're just going to dig into the dirt. Another thing that I do is I label my tanks. You're not going to be able to see it, but the label tells me the scientific name, the common name, country or countries of origin, the adult size, can that animal be handled, its name, and its sex if I know it. If your animal is in a screen tank or a screen cover, I should have brought one in here and I didn't. Uh, I had a spider that would climb up the tank like this, and they have little hooks on their feet. And about twice a week, I would have to get up at like 1 o'clock in the morning because she would sit there and bang against the side of the tank, and it would wake me up. So, what I would do is I would get something, usually a box lid or anything that would support her and her weight, and I would very carefully flip the lid over just enough that she could get onto the other item and things were okay. And then I would just put her back into her tank and close the lid up. Now, when it comes to feeding, never leave food in the tank overnight. Or if you leave it in overnight, take it out the next day. Very, very important. What can you feed your tarantula? Well, that depends on your tarantula. You basically, insects are the best. You really don't, you need to gut feed them. So what that means is you need to provide, what I would use is cricket food, and you give that, if you can, to the crickets. If not, yeah, just when you buy the crickets from the store, just dump them in. What I would do is I would give my adults about 4 crickets each week. You don't want to go. You don't have to feed them any more than that. In fact, you can feed depending upon the size of your spider. You could do 4 crickets every other week. The smaller the animal, the smaller the prey should be, and your food should be live. Although baby tarantulas, you might be able to get away with feeding like a torn apart cricket, freshly killed. Um, you can give them dubia roaches. You can give them any type of roach, basically. The trick is you want them to move. If the animal is not moving, your tarantula may not be able to sense them, and they won't get ate. Also, you might be able, with the bigger animals, you might be able to feed them mice. Now, warning, you don't want to use adult mice. You want to use something smaller, maybe a pinky. Sorry, I got disconnected there for a second. You don't want your animal getting hurt. I have found that tarantulas can be picky, believe it or not. Superworms don't always go okay. Mealworms, you got to be really careful of because they will burrow into the dirt and they will pupate into the adult form. Uh, you don't want your animals getting hurt. That's the main thing. And you're thinking, well, how can a cricket hurt a tarantula? Well, they can actually nibble on your tarantula, believe it or not. So don't do that. Really important, you cannot buy dead food and feed it to your tarantula. It needs to be live. I recommend not using stuff that is from the outside because you don't know if the neighbor has sprayed. You don't know if the city has gone in and sprayed for mosquitoes. So you don't want to feed your spiders something that might have pesticides on it. Any questions? Any questions? Carol, any questions? It's quiet tonight. Because that basically finishes the live. Instagram has been really quiet. Carol, did you see that we had 2 other people come in? You're grossed out. Hey, I tell it like it is. You should know that by now. If I don't tell you like it is, then somebody will. If I don't tell it like it is, somebody will make a mistake, and I don't want that. I know, but got to do it sometime. Um, yeah. So that's sort of the breakdown on setting up and everything. You also, if your house is warm, you don't need to heat your tanks. I don't recommend doing that. Um, because if you have a heating element in the tank, your tarantula can get on it and can get burned, and that's not good. Um, so don't use them. Just make sure your room is heated, and you should be good. Remember, if it's an animal that is native to North America, so like your Texas brown tarantulas, your Arizona blonde tarantulas, they're going to have cooler temperatures at night. And, as long as it's sort of warm, they're not going to be active during the day anyway in the desert. So if it's warm, most of us have indoor temperatures around 65 to 70. Even if it's in like the summertime, it gets a little bit hotter than that. Your animals probably aren't going to suffer that much. The big thing is you want to watch humidity. That's the biggest thing. No, keep it out of the sun. Because if it's in glass, it's going to make it too warm. I suggest not keeping it by the windows because there could be drafts. Um, Mine are in a corner of the room. They're actually on a bookshelf right behind where I film all of my videos for the channel. Back when I had them. They Most tarantulas are active at night anyway. They may move about during the day, and if you feed them towards evening or during the day, chances are they will grab it. I recommend also not holding your tarantula, although I understand if you do. Again, it boils down to the abdomen is really soft, and if you accidentally drop it, you could cause serious injury to your tarantula. So that's why I recommend not holding them. That, and you put yourself at risk because you could take a bite. And nobody wants to get bit. I feel like Dracula every time I do that. Another thing I get a lot of questions on is venom. Uh, if you're allergic to wasp, you might have to worry about New World tarantulas. An easy way to tell New World from Old World tarantulas is the New World tarantulas are hairy. New World tarantulas, not so much. New World tarantulas are usually a little bit milder of venom, but they are still venomous. Old World tarantulas are definitely a little bit hotter venom. I recommend keeping those, but keeping them away from your hands. If I also don't recommend keeping Old World spiders as your beginner spider. Some people will disagree with me. Hotter means more venomous. That I mean, yeah. I don't think there's any longtime tarantula keeper who would disagree with that. Maybe. Some might. Um some really good beginner spiders, at least in my book, are the and by the way, if you check again, as I'm saying this, tarantulas may be illegal in your city. So before you go out and buy one, know the rules in your city. But my picks for a good beginner spider would be Arizona Blonde, Texas Brown, the hairy or the curly hair tarantula, or the Chaco golden knee tarantula. I don't, with my last Chilean rose hair, she's not as docile as the last one. Um, so yeah, and the books, when they say that a tarantula is docile, that is a suggestion. That doesn't mean that that's always going to be the case. It also does if the book says that an animal is aggressive or defensive, believe that. But if it says that it's docile, take that with a grain of salt. Because spiders, believe it or not, can have a personality, and it varies from spider to spider. But I have found that, yeah, if it says that it's aggressive or defensive, yeah, it's probably going to be. Defensive, what does a defensive spider looks like? Typically, you gotta sort of imagine this because it can't do it, but the tarantula will get up on its back legs. It'll have its fangs spread out. And then if you are foolish enough not to back down or not to back away or to stop doing whatever it is that is making your spider mad, it's going to go boop, and you're probably going to get a wet bite. And a wet bite is, of course, when you get venom in you. And in case you're wondering, I have seen tarantulas so mad that they literally are leaking venom out of their fangs. So, yeah. That's not fun when that thing is looking at you like your dinner. That being said, they make pretty interesting pets. Another thing to watch for is if you are a new beginner tarantula owner and you see your spider upside down in the bottom of its tank, don't mess with it. Don't do that. Because if I go in there and I mess with my spider like it is right now, it's probably molting. And if I mess with it, I run the risk of killing it. Now, if your tarantula is in its tank and the legs are all curled up and it's not moving or hardly moving, it's dying. That's called a death curl. They will literally, legs will be curled up like that. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah. I'm trying to think what else I can tell you. That's the main thing. Also, male tarantulas, they will go through a series of molts just like the females. The last molt, they will get what looks like boxing gloves on the pedipalps. That's what these are. These things. And yeah, these things will have little boxing gloves on them. That's what they're going to use to eventually, maybe, impregnate a female. How do you distinguish male from female? Not so easy. They have vents on the bottom of on the belly, and those vents on a tarantula tell you if you have a male or a female. Yeah, it literally looks like little boxing gloves. I gotta figure out the best way to show it. See how those are rounded? You can sort of see it, sort of not see it, but they will swell and look like little boxing gloves on the end of the pedipalps. Also, if you see your male and he's on his belly upside down and he's in like his abdomen is inside webbing, uh don't mess with him. Let him be. He's fine. He's just doing male things. Okay? Uh it's what's called a sperm web. And what he's doing is actually getting his cells onto the webbing and then gathering them up and getting them into his pedipalps. And unless you breed, I don't need to get into the other stuff, but those are the things that are most concerning, at least when you have a new animal in the house. Tends to be that. Also, you really don't want your animal like soaking in water, but from time to time they will do that. Some tarantulas like to have the side of the tank moist. That's fine. Don't overdo it, but that's okay too. You want to make sure that if your animal, oh, another thing, the abdomen on a tarantula before it gets ready to molt will go dark, almost black, pretty much black, like my sweater. And that's how you know that there is a molt coming. If there's a molt coming, you need to increase your humidity, because if you don't, your tarantula is going to have a very difficult time and may even get stuck inside its molt. A molt is sort of like a snake shedding its skin, except that instead of shedding skin, it is shedding skeleton. So, very important to know because you don't want dead tarantula. So those are some hints and tips. Another thing that I recommend is always having a container when you do shift your animals, because sometimes it is necessary to do a tank change. I recommend doing that in your bathtub with just a little bit of water in the bottom, just enough to make it wet, and maybe about that much water. Um, your animal, and I need to say this so that somebody else doesn't come in and say, "Well, that's not right." Uh, your animal can climb the bathtub. Oh, I'm running low. Okay, that's cool. Um, they can climb. You typically should not be cleaning your tank. Okay, because like I said earlier, they don't you they don't clean their thing. What you do need to do is spot clean. Okay? Go in with your feeding tongs, remove any uneaten food using your tongs. You also need to go in, they don't leave behind the shells of their animal that they eat. It's a ball of cricket parts Go in with your tweezers, very carefully pick them up and throw them away. Another thing you want to do is after a molt, you don't take the skin out, take the old skeleton out of the tank. But it's not really required that you have a perfectly clean tank. But if you're going to do it, try to do it as carefully as possible because it is going to stress your spider out. You're going to have hairs being kicked. And talking about hairs being kicked, you can be allergic to those hairs. So, something else to keep in mind. I have a friend who, with one genus of spider, if he gets the hairs on him, he literally breaks out in hives. I didn't know you could be allergic to them like that, but apparently you can. Every day you should spot clean. You're probably not. So that white is the feces. I knew there was a reason I didn't clean this tank because I wanted y'all to see it. They depending upon the species, also you may not get a whole bunch of silk. Some species produce a lot of silk. They don't catch their food in um, webbing. Webbing for tarantulas is used for the burrow. They will lay it down when they eat, and you'll see them sort of scooting, maybe scooting around in circles, and they're laying down silk as they do that. They may web up the entrance to their hide, and they will use silk when they molt, and also, like I said, when the male does his male thing, with the sperm web. The only other time that a tarantula will really use silk is when they make an egg sac. But again, that depends on the species. Some spiders are really heavy silkers. So if you have something like a green bottle blue, they're known to be heavy silk makers. One of the species that I had that was a really heavy silk user was a Kilimanjaro mustard baboon spider. They come from Africa. Also, my one of my orange baboon spiders, also from Africa, they produced a fairly good amount of silk. So it does depend on the spider. Know that if you do have an animal that puts out a lot of silk, that you don't want to go in there and destroy that because that also tends to freak out your spider. Because they can actually feel the vibrations from that, so be mindful of that as well. I would say if you're gonna clean your tanks, I would say about once a year do it. Have something though that your spider's gonna go into. Okay, don't just open up the tank and let the spider out because if they get away, there's no telling where they're gonna go. So just be mindful of that. No sharp points at your spider because again, the wrong end of a pencil could be bad for your spider. I was worried that I would have no time. I would have too much time left over. Here I am, almost 11 minutes and 11 minutes till the hour, and we are still good. I will have to change my tank though, or I have to charge my phone. Have I answered all the questions that are burning in your head? Next, live is going to be geologic specimens. That is Friday at 7 p.m. and Saturday at 7 p.m. We are playing half chance trivia. I believe is what it's called. Also at 7 p.m. Assuming I'm not dead in the water. Just losing my mind every which way. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you again. Much appreciated. Wish that was money. No, no, no. What? No, no, no. What? What? Was that the cat? What's wrong? I just mean that I'm out of my mind. There's a lot going on this week. I have all of the social media stuff. I have a chapter to put out, a talk to give, or a talk to plan, and a lesson to plan. So lots of stuff. Well, I don't always have talks to give, so yeah, there's that. Hello. I don't know who you are, but hello. We're unfortunately basically done with live. But you're welcome to join us if you can get in the chat. Yeah, that too, but I think I'm going to bring my Chromebook and maybe work around it. I know that's bad, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Because as soon as I get that chapter 6 out, I'm starting the next one. And I have a book that I'm trying to get out. So I ran into a problem yesterday with one of the names that I have to get ironed out, but because I got to make sure that I'm not breaking any trademarks. So yeah. And I think I need to shave. And I need a haircut. It's so quiet. I don't know why some people cannot get into chat. Maybe because they don't really, I don't know. Thank you for the like or for the hearts. Also, make sure that you give it a like. That's the little thumbs up icon. That helps me out. It helps more people find me. I love that. Instagram. I go live on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays at 7 p.m. just like we do on YouTube. So, just so you know. And you're welcome to join in. I like that. But I understand if you're busy. I also understand if the subject is not your thing for that day. I get it. Carol was really brave and she stuck it out. So I hate to say it, but if she can do it, you can do it. I need water and a secretary. Ha 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 ha. I just need a third me. I need somebody to do the work that I don't want to do. Anybody else feel that way? PA, personal assistant. Heh, yeah. If they want to be paid with air. Because that's all it is. It's air. It's free. I'll pay you with air. It's not even peanuts. It's just air. Guys, we're down to 5 minutes. Not too bad. Not too bad, I guess. Um, I don't know what Friday's gonna look like, but Saturday is gonna be very interactive, so be ready for that. I would say if you're gonna come in on any live, be here on Saturday because it'll be very interactive. Lots of fun. Hello, third person. Oh, it is 8 o'clock. Sorry about that noise. I am going to say goodbye. It is 8 o'clock. The witching hour has begun. Yep, trivia night. Yeah. So be ready for that because I have no idea. It's been so long since I've done this that I don't remember what the trivia is or what the questions are. So talk to you laters. Bye bye.